Every morning is a strategic moment. That moment, though it may last only a few minutes, holds the power to shape the entire trajectory of the day. It is like placing an arrow on a bowstring. Wherever the arrow is aimed, the entire flight will follow that direction. Most people are unaware of this power of choice. They let their bodies get up by habit, reach for their phones, and allow random information to slip into their minds. Just one negative headline, one overwhelming email, or one sarcastic comment is enough to steal their peace before they even have a chance to lay the foundation for their awareness. Those who let their minds be led so early quickly turn themselves into puppets of circumstance. Their emotions rise and fall depending on the weather, on other people's actions, on outside events they cannot control. This is the fastest way to lose inner sovereignty, to hand it over to factors unworthy of holding it. Those who understand the rules of the game are different. They guard the first moments of the day as sacred territory. They know the mind in the morning is like soft soil, ready to receive any seed sown into it. If they plant intentionality, they will reap clarity. If they plant carelessness, they will reap chaos. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "Today I will meet the meddlesome, the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, the envious, the rude," not to feed pessimism, but to prepare the mind like a warrior who already knows the battlefield ahead. When you anticipate the mental challenges that will arise, you greet them with calm rather than impulsive reaction. You are no longer surprised, no longer pushed out of your position of control, because you have been standing guard even before the sun has risen. This is the art of holding the high ground from the very first minute. Neuroscience confirms what philosophers have long known. The first thoughts of the day open up neural pathways that create an almost automatic response for the entire day. If you begin with focus and composure, the rest of the day will follow that course. Conversely, if you begin with agitation and negativity, your mind will be primed to seek out and amplify things on the same frequency, leaving the whole day steeped in instability. This power of choice cannot be taken away unless you give it up yourself. No one, not even the harshest circumstances, can step in and occupy your mind unless you allow it. But if you throw the door wide open the moment you wake, passively absorbing every stream of information, you have already signed away that power. What you need is a clear principle. The first moments of the day are reserved only for what you deliberately invite in. That could be an affirmation of your own worth, a vivid image of your goal, or a breathing exercise to reinforce awareness. The key is that you choose, not let the world choose for you. When you master the morning, you master the day. When you master the day, you are step by step shaping your life. Every morning is a chance to reaffirm your identity, re-establish your position of control, and send a silent message to yourself, "I am at the wheel." No longer drifting along in chaotic currents, you design life from the inside out. Holding firmly to your morning choice is how you force the world to adjust to your rhythm, instead of being spun around by the rhythm of the world. And that is the fundamental difference between someone who passively exists and someone who actively lives. The moment you first wake up is a golden window most people overlook. It is the first few minutes when the brain transitions from the slow waves of sleep into the rhythm of wakefulness. In this stage, the mind is highly receptive, like soft soil not yet compacted, ready to take in any seed you plant. Neuroscience calls this the period when the brain is in alpha and theta states, the ideal brainwave ranges for shaping thought and emotion. If you let negative seeds fall in, they will take root and grow throughout the day. A stressful email, a gloomy news headline, a quick comparison on social media, each can program you into a state of unease that lasts for hours. In contrast, if you sow focus, gratitude and mindfulness, they will shape your mental reflexes, helping you maintain calm and decisiveness when facing later collisions. Marcus Aurelius understood the value of this golden window. He did not let his morning mind be occupied by random things. He deliberately engaged in dialogue with himself, reminding in advance of the kinds of people and situations he might encounter, not to create fear, but to prepare his mind. This preparation is like a general surveying the battlefield before stepping out, knowing the terrain and the enemy's weaknesses, thereby keeping the upper hand. This moment is special because it doesn't just shape your mood, it establishes the neural pathways for the entire day. The neural connections activated early will continue to be prioritized by the brain, like a road already cleared, easier to travel than any other path. Therefore, choosing what to think about right after waking is not random, it is strategy. Most people let the golden window be consumed by mechanical reflexes, grabbing the phone, checking messages, scrolling through social media. They don't realize they are allowing dozens of uncontrolled external inputs into the purest mental space of the day. Once attention has been fragmented and pulled away, it is very hard to restore that original focus. The wise guard this time as a precious asset. They create morning rituals to reinforce their direction. Some sit quietly for a few minutes to observe their breath. Some write down 3 things they are grateful for. Some read a few lines of philosophy so the mind anchors itself to unchanging principles. Though the forms differ, the essence is the same, to place in the golden window the messages they want amplified throughout the day. It doesn't need to last for hours. Sometimes just 5–10 minutes of focus is enough to make a huge difference. What matters is keeping this time clean from random intrusions. Just like a drop of ink in a clear glass of water, if it falls in the very first moment, it will spread throughout, impossible to separate. Imagine each morning as reprogramming your operating system. The golden window is the time you install the most important commands: how you will view the world today, how you will respond to disruptions, and at what energy level you will operate. Once these commands are running in the background, your entire day will function accordingly, whether you are conscious of them or not. Missing the golden window is handing over power to the external world from the first minute. Keeping it is a declaration that you are not just waking up physically, but awakening mentally. This is not a luxury for people with free time. It is a survival necessity for anyone who wants to own their life. You cannot control all 24 hours, but you can absolutely control the first few minutes. And if you do that well, the rest of the day will, to some extent, adjust to the course you've set. The golden window opens only once each morning. Either you seize it to fortify your strength, or you let it pass and allow the world to decide for you. There are words you say to yourself that are not merely sentences, but commands engraved into the structure of your mind, directing how you see, think, and respond to the world. The 10 morning declarations are not vague mantras meant to comfort yourself, nor are they short-term mental stimulants. They are affirmations rooted in reality, reflecting the way the world truly operates, while placing you in an active position in any circumstance. What sets these declarations apart is their foundation in Stoic philosophy, where people are trained to look directly at the truth, accept limitations, and act based on what they can control. No sugarcoating, no lulling to sleep, no fanciful promises. They are like a set of mental armor, refined over thousands of years. From the Roman battlefields, through the world wars, to today's fiercely competitive environment. Each declaration targets a timeless human weakness: emotional dependence on circumstances, fear of losing peace, the habit of trying to control the uncontrollable. equating self-worth with short-term results, the gap between intention and action, resistance to challenges, toxic comparison, dependence on fleeting motivation, lack of gratitude, and a stagnant mindset. When you deliberately repeat them in the morning, you are not just saying them for fun, you are restructuring your own operating system. In psychological terms, this is the mechanism of conscious autosuggestion, a form of reprogramming your inner operating system. The brain does not clearly distinguish between a real experience and one vividly imagined with strong emotion. When you affirm something with conviction and a specific mental image, the brain will begin to adjust behavior and emotional responses to match this new command. And because the morning golden window is when neural connections are most malleable, these declarations have the highest chance of imprinting deeply into your awareness. The important thing is that they don't promise you will avoid hardship. On the contrary, they prepare you to face hardship without being crushed. They don't turn you into a dreamer who expects the world to bend to their will, but into someone steadfast enough to preserve their identity in a world that never stops changing. Each declaration is like a pillar supporting the house of your inner world. You don't need to memorize them all at once. Just choose one that strikes at your weakest point and practice it consistently, then gradually build other pillars. Inner resilience does not come from one explosive act, but from solid layers built up morning after morning. Remember, this is not a ritual to perform for the sake of it. The power of the 10 declarations only appears when you truly believe and live by them. Saying them without acting is merely to give the mind temporary comfort. Saying them and acting on them consistently is what turns them into second nature. Stoic philosophy does not glorify knowledge for display, but values wisdom proven in action. And when you persist, a subtle yet powerful shift will occur. You no longer have to consciously apply these principles to your day because they have become your natural reflex. When trouble arises, you no longer react with old habits, but automatically choose the wiser response. When opportunities appear, you no longer hesitate in endless analysis, but act along a pre-established course. The real power of the 10 declarations lies in how they transform you from someone who passively responds to life into someone who actively shapes it. They help you step out of the victim role and become the author of your own script. They don't guarantee you will win every game, but they ensure you won't be defeated by your own mind. And like any powerful tool, their value depends on how you use them. Repeating them a set number of times is not the goal. Embedding each one deeply into your actions is. Each morning, when you choose to speak these words with full presence and commitment, you are taking a strategic action, laying the foundation for a steady day, no matter how chaotic the world outside may be. No lasting change begins with a fleeting burst of inspiration. It only emerges when you deliberately step into a disciplined journey. Morning training is one such journey, quiet, unadorned, yet silently shaping the way you live the rest of your day. This is not a 7-day challenge for you to try for fun, but a long-term commitment, where every morning becomes a strategic training session for the mind. This invitation is for those who understand that they cannot control the entire outside world, but can absolutely control how they enter each day. When you choose to step in, you are agreeing to one fundamental principle. The morning is the moment you hold full authority to set the pace for everything that follows. Letting it pass in chaos is giving the advantage to circumstances. Seizing it is giving the advantage to yourself. Stoic philosophy has proven the value of morning training for thousands of years. From Roman emperors to warriors, from thinkers to successful entrepreneurs, all understood the importance of starting the day with intention. They didn't wait for inspiration to act. They acted to create the mental state they wanted. This journey demands more than reading or listening to principles. You must live with them, test them in real situations, and let them become part of your identity. Each morning, when you repeat the declarations, you are not merely pronouncing words, you are sending a clear signal to your mind. This is the direction. This is the standard. This is how I choose to live today. The change will not come instantly, and that is normal. Like building muscle, the first mornings may only bring a sense of novelty, but over time, the principles you plant will gradually become a solid foundation. One day you will notice yourself reacting differently to an insult, remaining calmer in the face of trouble, or staying firmer when faced with temptation. And that will be the result of the mornings you disciplined yourself. Stepping into this journey is also accepting a truth. There will be mornings you don't want to do it. Mornings when you feel tired, busy, or pulled in by a flood of urgent matters. Those are the mornings that truly test you. If you only train when it's convenient, you are building a fortress on sand. But if you maintain your morning ritual on the hardest days, you are fortifying a fortress of stone. See this as a serious invitation, not a gentle suggestion. When you step in, you must understand this is a commitment to yourself. No one will stand by to supervise, and no one will reward you instantly. But the results will appear in every decision, every action, every feeling you carry throughout the day. And more importantly, this is not just a journey of training the mind, but of shaping your life. Each morning you master yourself is a brick laid in the foundation of your future. Conversely, each morning stolen by randomness is a brick removed, leaving your structure more fragile against the winds. The invitation is here. The door opens the moment you wake up tomorrow. You can step through with awareness and resolve, or let it pass and allow another day to slip into old inertia. No one can make that decision for you. But if you choose to step in, step with the full awareness that you are beginning a journey that can change the way you live forever. No one but you has the right to decide how you will feel today. Every incident, every word, every glance can only touch your emotions if you allow it. Accepting this is the first step to reclaiming your full inner strength. The declaration, "I am responsible for my emotions today," is not a slogan to chant for the sake of it, but a statement of ownership over the state of your own mind. Most people live as emotional victims. They let the weather, traffic, news, or other people's behavior dictate their mood. A careless comment can ruin their entire day. A delayed text reply can spark anxiety. An unpleasant look can plant the seed of anger. They react as if emotions are the product of external conditions rather than a personal choice. This way of living not only drains energy, but also turns them into puppets pulled by strings they cannot control. Those who understand the value of emotional self-mastery see things differently. They do not deny negative emotions, but treat them as temporary guests, arriving and leaving, never allowed to settle in. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, proved this at the most extreme level. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. If someone stripped of everything could still choose their response, then you can do the same in daily life. Stoic philosophy also reminds us that we do not suffer from events themselves, but from how we judge those events. Change the way you see it, and you change the way you feel. This does not mean forcing yourself into fake cheerfulness, but recognizing that emotions are not destiny, they are the result of thought. Practicing this declaration requires a clear morning ritual. Place your hand over your chest, feel your heartbeat, and speak slowly but firmly. I am responsible for my emotions today. Joy is my choice. Peace is my decision. I choose strength over weakness, clarity over confusion, hope over fear. When the words are paired with awareness and physical sensation, the brain records it as a command, not just a passing thought. At first, you may still feel your emotions being pulled by unexpected situations. But it is precisely in those moments of being pulled that the most important test happens. Pause, repeat the declaration, and observe the shift within. Over time, this response will become a new instinct, like a muscle strengthened through each resistance. When you take responsibility for your emotions, you no longer need the world to be perfect for you to feel okay. You do not require others to behave as you wish for your mood to remain stable. You do not allow a rainy morning, a rude person, or bad news to shatter your inner state. And in that moment, you step out of passivity and into the position of mastery. Interestingly, when you remain consistent with this declaration, your environment also changes. Others will sense the stability and unshakable quality in you, and they will be less likely to provoke or negatively influence you. You become a point of strength, not a point of weakness. No one can promise you will never feel sadness, anger, or fear. But when you take responsibility for your emotions, you know that every feeling has an exit. You are no longer trapped in the loop of unconscious reaction. And when you master what is within, you will realize that all external forms of power, authority, money, reputation, are merely secondary rewards. This declaration, if repeated and lived by each day, will transform you from someone swept away by the current into the one steering the boat. From then on, each day will no longer be an unpredictable unknown, but a choice shaped by you alone. The inner practice for the declaration, "I am responsible for my emotions today," begins with accepting one truth. You cannot choose everything that happens, but you can always choose how to respond. This choice does not happen unconsciously. It must be deliberately trained until it becomes a natural reflex. To reach that point, you must build for yourself a practice structure strong enough to keep your mind in a position of control even when caught in turbulence. The first step is to identify the trigger point of your emotions. Most of us react before we even realize what is happening inside. A harsh comment, an unexpected delay, a piece of negative news, all can trigger emotions in an instant. Instead of letting an impulsive reaction lead the way, practice freezing for a few seconds. Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why? Simply naming the emotion creates a gap between you and it, helping you avoid being merged with it. The second step is to redefine the event. Stoic philosophy teaches that we do not suffer because of the event itself, but because of our judgment of it. When someone speaks harshly to you, the event is simply, "This person said X in tone Y." The negative emotion appears because you add meanings like, "They looked down on me," or "I was insulted." The inner practice here is to strip away unnecessary interpretations and see the event as it is. This perspective not only soothes emotion, but also returns to you the ability to choose a deliberate response. The third step is to reaffirm your control. Establish a morning ritual. Sit still, place your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, and slowly affirm, "Today I am responsible for my emotions. No one, nothing, has the right to decide my mood but me." Saying it aloud helps imprint this command into your awareness, while the combination of bodily sensation and words signals to the brain that this is an order to execute, not a vague thought. The fourth step is to practice the golden pause throughout the day. Whenever you notice your emotions being affected, stop for one deep breath. Focus on the air moving through your nose, and only then decide how to respond. This pause is a powerful tool that helps you shift from instinctive reaction to conscious action. When practiced consistently, it becomes a protective barrier against impulsive reactions that could ruin your entire day. The fifth step is end-of-day reflection. Before going to sleep, ask yourself, today, how much of my emotional control did I maintain? When I lost it, what triggered it? Could I have handled it differently? Writing down the answers is not for self-blame, but to observe progress and identify situations that require more practice. This is the training loop: awareness, adjustment, reinforcement. Most importantly, remember that taking responsibility for your emotions does not mean suppressing or denying them. You will still feel sadness, anger, and disappointment. These are natural human reactions. The difference is that you do not let these emotions unconsciously dictate your behavior. You let them appear, observe them, learn from them, and then let them go, like clouds passing across the sky without clinging to them. When you follow these steps of inner practice, you are building an internal command center. This center is not ambushed by messages, weather, or other people's attitudes. It operates according to the principles you set each morning and reinforce each evening. The more you practice, the more you will realize that emotional stability is not innate, but the result of discipline. And when you have discipline, mastering your emotions is no longer a distant goal. It becomes the way you live each day. Inner peace is not a random gift of fate, but a territory that must be protected every day. The declaration, "Nothing disturbs my peace without permission," is the statement of an ultimate boundary, where you serve as the sole gatekeeper. The mind is like a fortress. Its strength or fragility does not depend on how many outer walls it has, but on whether you leave the gate wide open for anything to flood in. Most people are unaware that they are leaving the gate open. A harsh comment from a colleague, a line of pessimistic news, a glance lacking goodwill, all are allowed to walk straight into the control center of their emotions, set up camp, and sow chaos. When you let that happen, you hand over control to others and turn yourself into someone reactive to even the smallest disturbances. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Strength here is not about avoiding the world, but about the ability to live amid chaos without letting chaos live inside you. It is the skill of deciding who and what is allowed to pass through the gate of your mind. This requires a subtle discipline, not closing yourself off and becoming numb, but knowing when to open up, to whom and to which information. You still feel, you still empathize, but you do not let your emotions be dictated by factors beyond your control. When someone says something unpleasant, you can notice the discomfort without letting it define the rest of your day. When faced with an unfavorable event, you can acknowledge it without turning it into a reason to shatter your inner stability. The key lies in permission. Nothing can break your peace unless you grant it that privilege. This means you must be aware of every factor entering your mind, like a guard checking every entity that wants to enter the fortress. You choose the information you consume, the conversations you engage in, the reactions you offer. One effective practice is a morning ritual. Stand in front of the mirror, look yourself straight in the eye and say, "Today, nothing disturbs my peace without permission. I am the gatekeeper of my inner world. My peace is not for sale, not for rent, not for negotiation." When repeated daily, this affirmation becomes an automatic shield, reminding you that any external impact exists only if you allow it to reside in your mind. However, for this declaration to be effective, you must train the ability to pause before reacting. That pause is a sacred space, where you have the power to choose, to let the event pass, to handle it with reason, or to let it break your peace. Those without training react immediately, then regret realizing they have given away their power too easily. Those who are trained will notice that pause and use it as a privilege. Keeping your peace does not mean avoiding conflict or refusing to face the truth. On the contrary, it allows you to face truth more powerfully because you are not blinded by negative emotions. When the mind is calm, your decisions are wiser, your words more persuasive, and your actions more effective. Peace is the foundation for doing everything else at the highest quality. Without it, you fall into impulsive reactivity, become easily led, and struggle to focus on important goals. With it, you can move through a day full of upheaval while maintaining focus, like a ship in rough seas, whose rudder always points toward its destination. When you live by this declaration, you send a clear message to the world. I am not a public playground for anyone to unload their emotions on. If you wish to enter, bring respect. And more importantly, you send that message to yourself, reminding yourself that the power to protect your peace never lies beyond your reach. Protecting inner peace is not a static state achieved once and kept forever, but a skill that must be practiced daily with the same consistency as training a muscle. It requires you to be as alert as a gatekeeper and as strategic as a tactician, knowing when to open the gate to receive and when to close it to prevent intrusion. To do this, you need a clear system of techniques based not on fleeting bursts of inspiration, but on sustainable principles. The first technique is proactively establishing a morning no-interrupt zone. As soon as you wake up, keep your mind from being invaded by random factors, phone, email, social media. This time should be reserved for mental orientation, repeating your declaration, or engaging in a personal ritual such as jotting down a few thoughts, reading a passage from a book, or sitting in stillness to breathe deeply. When you control the start, the rest of the day will follow the trajectory you have set. The second technique is building an information filter. Not everything that reaches your ears is worth keeping. Train yourself to ask before taking something in, is this information useful to me? Will it help me act better? If the answer is no, let it pass. Just as a general does not bring every rumor to the strategy table, you must choose the data that will nourish your mind. The third technique is practicing a pause before reacting. This is the most direct tool for preventing negative impacts from breaking your peace. When you receive a personal attack or encounter an unfavorable situation, do not respond immediately. Take one deep breath, identify the emotion rising within you, and ask, will this reaction serve my long-term goals? This brief pause is the sacred space that allows you to shift from instinctive reaction to conscious choice. The fourth technique is limiting the presence of disruptive elements. Your living space and work environment should be cleared of sources of negative stimulation. This could mean reducing time spent with people who constantly complain, or setting clear boundaries around unhealthy conversations. Every negative factor removed is another layer of protection reinforced. The fifth technique is reinforcing inner energy through daily habits. Peace cannot last if the body and mind are exhausted. Sufficient sleep, regular movement, and proper nutrition are not just healthcare, but the biological foundation for maintaining emotional control. A well-nourished mind is less likely to be shaken by sudden jolts. The sixth technique is practicing detachment from other people's scripts. Many emotional conflicts arise because we unconsciously step into someone else's story, letting them define us, pulling us into their spiral. Learn to stand in the position of an observer, recognizing that what they say or do reflects their worldview and state of being, not your true value. When you are not drawn into their script, your peace remains intact. Finally, the most important technique is training the ability to self-remind. Whenever you sense your peace is being threatened, repeat to yourself, "This peace is mine. I decide whether to keep it or give it away." This reminder acts like an electronic fence, instantly activating awareness and bringing you back to your role as gatekeeper. Inner peace is not something fragile for anyone to touch. It is a personal asset, and its value depends on whether you have the alertness and discipline to protect it each day. When these techniques are applied consistently, you will find that you no longer have to strain to keep your peace, because it has become the default structure within you, regardless of what happens in the outside world. The declaration, "Today I focus only on what I can control," is one of the core principles of sustainable living. It separates those who remain steadfast from the crowds who live in constant anxiety, swept away by things that are not within their power to decide. Epictetus once said, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." Those who clearly understand this boundary will find freedom. Those who blur it will live in endless inner conflict. The problem for most people is that they spend the majority of their mental energy on things they cannot control: the weather, prices, politics, other people's behavior, or public opinion. Whenever the outcome is not what they expect, they fall into disappointment, frustration, or a sense of helplessness. They become victims of a chain of events that, in truth, they never had the power to determine from the start. Those who understand this principle operate differently. They sort every issue into 3 circles. The first circle, what they can fully control, such as actions, effort, and attitude. The second circle, what they can only partially influence, such as others' opinions or the results of a project. The third circle, what is completely out of reach, such as natural disasters or the global market. They allocate 90% of their resources to the first circle, a small portion to the second, and almost none to the third. When you choose to focus only on what you can control, you release a huge amount of energy that was previously leaking into pointless arguments or imaginary fears. You start to feel lighter, because instead of being scattered by hundreds of random factors, you channel your full attention into actions that truly create change. This focus not only boosts effectiveness, but also generates a sense of agency, the foundation of all confidence. This does not mean you are indifferent to the world or careless about consequences. On the contrary, you act more decisively because you waste no time or emotion on useless matters. You respond quickly to what can be changed and remain calm with what cannot. This is the skill of those who stand firm in crises. They do not panic over rumors. They do not drain their strength on complaints, but immediately redirect their resources towards solutions. Practicing this declaration starts in the morning. Spend a few minutes writing down 3 things you truly control that day. They could be how you prepare for a meeting, the time you devote to learning, or the attitude you maintain when facing obstacles. Whenever you are pulled into a stressful situation, ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, act immediately. At first, you may find it difficult because old habits will still pull you toward emotional reactions. But over time, this sorting becomes instinctive. You will find yourself less easily provoked by criticism, no longer losing sleep over market fluctuations, and less preoccupied with how others perceive you. Instead, you will use that energy to improve yourself, build your capabilities, and prepare for whatever comes your way. The power of this declaration lies not only in sharpening your focus but also in freeing your mind from an invisible burden. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you will find your mind more open, your judgment clearer, and your energy richer for living fully in the present. And it is in the present, the only place where you truly have power, that you can make a real difference. Today, if you remember only one thing, remember this: real power does not lie in controlling everything, but in mastering what belongs to you. When you hold firmly to the principle, "Today I focus only on what I can control," you step out of the vortex of helplessness and into the realm of freedom, where every action you take creates real value. A person's value is not the number that rises or falls on a scoreboard in a single day, but the inner foundation that remains solid no matter how the results change. The declaration, "My value is not measured by today's results," is a refusal to hand over your identity to temporary fluctuations. It places you in the position of someone who understands success and failure are merely data, not verdicts that define who you are. Society constantly reminds you that your worth is tied to productivity, status, wealth, or recognition. If today you close a big deal, you are considered good. If you miss an opportunity, you are instantly labeled inadequate. This way of measuring makes your mood and self-esteem rise and fall like a boat in rough seas, always dependent on factors beyond your control. Living this way turns yourself into public property, where anyone can influence your value with a single compliment or criticism. Those who understand this principle see it differently. They separate effort from identity. They know their value comes from their inner qualities, from the principles they consistently live by, from integrity, character, and the ability to rise again after setbacks. Seneca, the Stoic master, was exiled, stripped of power, and ultimately faced death by the emperor's order. Yet even when he lost everything external, he preserved his inner dignity, because he understood the ending of a beginning does not diminish the worth of the one who began. Practicing this declaration does not mean being indifferent to results. You still set goals, still give your all, but you do it with mental freedom. If the result is good, you learn to enjoy it without arrogance. If the result is bad, you learn to take the lesson without devaluing yourself. In both cases, the core value remains intact. The best way to train is to notice moments when results dictate your emotions. When finishing a task, ask yourself, "Did my value today come from my actions or from the result?" If the answer leans entirely toward the result, you are giving too much power to external factors. Adjust by focusing on recognizing what you did right, the principles you upheld regardless of the outcome. Substitute now as ongoing, or substitute. A useful ritual is to keep a journal at the end of the day. Instead of only recording what you achieved or failed to achieve, write down the actions that aligned with your values. Today I remained calm during a tense meeting. I told the truth, even though it was difficult. I made time for family despite a packed schedule. By doing this consistently, you gradually shift your self-evaluation from results to character. Interestingly, when you detach value from results, pressure decreases, and that very fact helps you perform better. You act with a more open mindset, less fear, and therefore greater creativity. You are no longer obsessed with winning or losing, but focused on doing right and doing your best. Good results then become a natural consequence, not the sole factor deciding your mood. The world will always have external standards to judge you, and you cannot eliminate them entirely. But you can decide which standards truly matter. When you hold firm to the declaration, "My value is not measured by today's results," you are building a fortress within, where the winds of praise and criticism, victory and defeat, merely pass by without shaking the foundation. And it is precisely that steadiness that is the true measure of your worth. Intentions do not transform a life. action does. The declaration, "I will act, not just intend," is a refusal to live in the safe zone of beautiful thoughts that never become reality. It severs the dangerous link between the false sense of satisfaction that comes from planning and the empty reality when nothing is executed. Most people prefer planning over doing, because planning creates the illusion of progress without requiring confrontation with risk or failure. They write out lists of goals, read countless materials, search for the perfect moment to start, and then that moment never comes. Prolonged preparation becomes a disguised form of procrastination. Those who live by this declaration understand a hard truth. Every idea, no matter how brilliant, is meaningless if not acted upon. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, "I arise to do the work of a human being." The work of a human being is to do, not just to think. A plan only has value if it leads to concrete action, and action only produces results when taken even before it is perfect. Action requires courage because it pulls you out of your comfort zone and places you in situations where you can fail. But it is precisely this contact with reality that develops skill, experience, and resilience. You can read hundreds of pages about swimming, but you will never know how to swim until you get in the water. Similarly, you can spend months studying business, but only when you actually start selling a product will you truly understand the game. To live by this declaration, you must train the principle of immediate action. When a viable idea appears, identify the smallest step you can take right away and execute it within 24 hours. This step doesn't have to solve the whole problem, but it breaks inertia and signals to your brain that you are a person of action. This habit, repeated long enough, will turn you into someone who does not get trapped in analysis or hesitation. Useful technique is parallel execution. Allow yourself to work and refine at the same time, instead of waiting for perfect conditions to begin. In reality, successful people rarely start with a flawless plan. They start with what they have and adjust continuously. They understand that perfection is the result of repeated action, not the prerequisite for it. Practicing this declaration also helps you build credibility with yourself. Every time you do exactly what you intended, you reinforce the inner belief that you can be relied upon. Conversely, each time you delay or abandon, you unconsciously erode that trust, making it harder to start next time. This inner credibility is the fuel for sustaining long-term motivation, even when enthusiasm fades. The key is not to do as much as possible at once, but to consistently take important steps, regardless of mood. When action becomes habit, you will realize that inspiration often comes after starting, not before. This is why the consistent always surpass those who are merely good at planning. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I do today to move closer to my goal? If there is no clear answer, that is a signal you are drifting into the still waters of intention without taking a single stroke forward. Tomorrow, put one specific action at the top of your list and complete it before anything else. Living by the declaration, "I will act, not just intend," is a commitment to leave the comfort zone of theory and step into the challenge zone of reality. There, every step, no matter how small, has value, because it takes you from the world of ideas into the world of real results. And only in that world can you truly build the life you want. No challenge appears solely to make you suffer. They exist to train you. The declaration, "Every challenge is an opportunity to grow stronger," is not an empty consolation, but the operating principle behind all real progress. Strength, whether physical or mental, is only formed when it must push against resistance. No one builds stronger muscles by lying still. Likewise, no one builds a steadier mind by avoiding adversity. Most people respond to difficulty by complaining or avoiding it. They see challenges as proof of injustice, as signs of bad luck. But those who understand this principle see it differently. Challenges are hidden training grounds, where each drill is a real-life situation, forcing you to apply and upgrade your abilities. How you face them is what shapes you, not the challenge itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not just philosophy, but practical guidance. When you meet an obstacle, don't ask why me. Ask, how can I use this to move forward? Changing the question changes the mindset, and when the mindset changes, so does your approach to the challenge. To turn challenges into opportunities, you must first train the ability to separate emotion from analysis. When a problem appears, natural emotions like worry, anger, or fear will rise. If you let them lead, you may react impulsively or quit. But if you can step back half a pace, observe and ask, what is this situation trying to teach me? What skill will be strengthened if I overcome it? You will see the challenge as useful. Next, remember that strength does not come from facing something once, but from repetition. Each time you overcome a challenge, no matter how small, you send your mind a message, I can. This message, reinforced over many occasions, becomes the foundation of confidence that prepares you for greater trials. That is why many people later realize that their most difficult periods were when they grew the fastest. One effective practice is to rewrite your story in each hardship. Instead of remembering it as a sequence of misfortunes, retell it as a training chapter. For example, instead of "I lost my job and had to start over," write, "I was given the chance to learn how to rebuild my life and find a better direction." This rewriting does not change the event, but it changes the meaning you attach to it, and that meaning will determine how you move forward. Also remember that not every challenge must be faced alone. Strength also comes from knowing when to seek the right support. This does not make you weaker. On the contrary, it allows you to leverage the wisdom and experience of others to get through difficult phases faster. A wise warrior does not fight alone when they can join forces with allies. Finally, distinguish between real challenges and self-imposed burdens. Many people are exhausted not because of objective adversity, but because they continually take on unnecessary tasks, placing themselves in a constant state of stress. Choosing the right challenges to invest your energy in is an important part of living wisely. When you see every challenge as an opportunity to train, the world becomes less threatening. Every difficulty becomes a lesson, every failure a brick laid in the foundation of inner strength. You no longer live waiting for the day everything goes smoothly to start being happy, but learn to be happy in the midst of the training process. And at that moment, you realize that true strength is not about never being knocked down. It is about getting up faster and standing firmer after each fall. Comparison is a double-edged sword that most people hold the wrong way. It can be a learning tool when used correctly, but when misused, it destroys confidence and peace of mind. The declaration, "I do not compare my journey to anyone else's," is a refusal to give others' standards and timelines the power to evaluate your worth. It draws your energy back to where it belongs, yourself, instead of wasting it on races you never agreed to run. Modern society makes comparison easier than ever. Just a few seconds scrolling through social media and you can see someone traveling, someone getting promoted, someone buying a house, someone showcasing their child's achievements. But what you don't see are the sleepless nights, the financial worries, or the failures they never post. You compare the chaotic behind the scenes of your own life to their edited highlight reel, and of course, you always end up feeling inadequate. Those who understand this principle know that every journey is unique. Different starting points, different circumstances, different goals, and even different definitions of success. Comparing your route to someone else's is like comparing a rose to a pine tree. Each is beautiful in its own way, but it becomes meaningless if they try to be the same. The greatest danger of wrong comparison is that it makes you run at someone else's pace and lose your own rhythm. You start making decisions based on the feeling of falling behind instead of what truly matters to you. You choose goals not because they fit, but because they help you keep up with others. And then, even when you achieve them, you still feel empty, because deep down it was never a race you wanted to run. To live by this declaration, you must change your unit of measurement for progress. Do not measure by your distance from others. Measure by your distance from who you were yesterday. Ask, what new thing have I learned? Where have I been more persistent? How have I upheld my values? When you compare only with yourself, every victory, no matter how small, has meaning because it confirms that you are moving forward on your personal path. One effective practice is to record daily achievements, no matter how small. This helps you see your continuous growth instead of focusing only on major milestones that may take a long time to reach. Also, make sure to acknowledge your setbacks. Not to blame yourself, but to extract lessons for the next step. Additionally, be selective about the information you consume. If your surroundings or the channels you follow constantly create pressure to compare, limit or remove them. Instead, seek out sources of inspiration that do not push you into toxic competition. People and stories that make you want to grow for yourself, not to surpass anyone else. When you stop comparing your journey to others, you will feel a significant sense of relief. The invisible pressure disappears, replaced by focus and creativity. You begin making decisions that align with your own identity and values, and you realize that what truly brings fulfillment is not crossing the finish line before someone else, but knowing you are walking your own path, at the pace and in the style that suit you best. This declaration does not encourage you to ignore others' success. On the contrary, it allows you to genuinely celebrate it because their success is no longer a threat to your worth. When you are no longer driven by comparison, you can both respect others' journeys and devote yourself fully to your own. And that is true freedom. Motivation is a passerby. Discipline is a lifelong companion. Those who place their future in the hands of motivation will live a fragmented life, because motivation appears sporadically, easily swept away by mood and circumstance. The declaration, "I choose discipline over motivation," is a commitment to building a system of action that does not depend on inspiration, a commitment that what needs to be done will be done, no matter the mood. Motivation often comes after hearing an inspiring story, watching a video, or achieving a small success. It creates a powerful wave of energy, but one that is short-lived. The problem is these waves don't arrive every day, and they certainly don't show up on the hardest days. Precisely the days when you need to act the most. If you wait for motivation, you will act in fits and starts, advance one step then stop, and gradually lose faith in your ability to sustain effort over the long term. Discipline is different. Discipline is the ability to do what needs to be done at the time it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. It is the contract you sign with yourself in which obligation outweighs fleeting emotion. Discipline does not wait for inspiration. It produces results, and results create new inspiration. This is the exact reverse loop of motivation. Instead of feel inspired, then act, discipline makes you act, then feel inspired. Those who choose discipline know that days of fatigue, boredom, or lack of enthusiasm are the most valuable tests. If you get through them, you not only finish the work, you strengthen your character. Marcus Cato, the Roman statesman and philosopher, once walked barefoot in winter to train his will. He did not do this because he enjoyed hardship, but because he understood that discipline is the only bridge between goals and achievement. Living by this declaration requires a clear strategy. First, you need to systematize important actions into fixed habits, tied to specific times and contexts, so they are not dependent on mood. For example, instead of "I'll exercise when I have time," decide clearly, "Every morning at 6 a.m. I exercise for 30 minutes." When an action is anchored to a schedule, skipping it becomes harder. Next, reduce the space for internal negotiation. If each day you have to debate with yourself about whether to do something, you will eventually find reasons to delay. Discipline is cutting off that negotiation process. The decision was already made beforehand. Today is just execution. Another powerful technique is the 2-minute rule. Commit to starting the task within 2 minutes of the set time, regardless of mood. Starting is the hardest part. Once you get into motion, most resistance fades. This is how you beat procrastination without waiting for your feelings to align. When living by discipline, you must also accept that not every day will be your most productive. What matters is not perfection, but consistency. Each time you keep to your discipline, you place another brick on the bridge to your goal. Skipping one day may not destroy the bridge, but skipping often will cause it to collapse. Interestingly, when discipline becomes habit, you will need motivation less, yet feel motivated more often. That's because you see yourself progressing every day, even if only a little, and that progress fuels your inner energy. You no longer rely on external pushes, because the drive to act has been built into your identity. The declaration, "I choose discipline over motivation," is not just choosing a method, it is choosing the kind of person you want to be. Someone who waits for inspiration to act, or someone who acts to create inspiration, someone led by mood, or someone who leads themselves. When the answer is clear, the path is clear. And discipline will be the companion who never abandons you, even on your hardest days. Gratitude is the lens that fine-tunes your entire perception of the world. The declaration, "Gratitude shapes how I see today," is not merely a positive attitude, but a deliberate cognitive strategy. It determines whether you enter the new day feeling lacking or abundant, seeing obstacles or opportunities, focusing on what's missing or on what is already present. Most people start their mornings with a list of tasks to do, problems to solve, and things they don't yet have. This is like opening your eyes and immediately looking at the world through a scarcity filter. Everything around you becomes evidence of insufficiency. In contrast, when you begin with gratitude, you set a filter of abundance. Everything around you becomes a reminder that you already have so much. Gratitude is not about denying difficulties or pretending that everything is fine. It is the ability to see what is worth appreciating, even when it coexists with challenges. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." This reminds us that, even on days that seem bad, there are countless things happening that we can value. Breath still steady, the body still functioning, relationships still existing, and the opportunity to improve still present. Neuroscience has proven that when you practice gratitude, your brain creates new connections that make it easier to notice the positive. You gradually train your attentional system to seek out and amplify supportive factors instead of fixating solely on threats. This not only elevates your mood, but also improves decision-making, as you are no longer driven by a constant state of stress. Practicing this declaration starts with the smallest things. Each morning, before touching your phone or opening your computer, Spend 1 minute thinking of or writing down 3 things you are grateful for. They don't have to be grand events. A restful night's sleep, a pleasant conversation yesterday, or simply the fact that you have a new day to make a difference. When you do this consistently, you will notice your mind automatically searching for more reasons to be grateful throughout the day. Another powerful technique is negative visualization, a method often used by Stoic philosophers. Briefly imagine losing something you currently have, your health, a loved one, or the freedom to move around. The feeling of loss will make you appreciate these things far more when you realize they are still here. This is not a game of pessimism, but a way to combat the familiar disease of taking what you have for granted. Gratitude is also a powerful shield against comparison and envy. When your mind is full of what you value, others' success no longer feels like a threat. It becomes a source of inspiration. You can celebrate them without feeling diminished, because you know you are rich in your own way. This declaration also helps you sustain mental endurance during difficult times. When facing failure or loss, your gratitude list becomes an anchor, reminding you that the world has not collapsed and you still have a foundation to build from. This is the difference between someone who falls completely and someone who remains standing, ready to try again. When gratitude shapes how you see today, you enter every situation ready to receive rather than defend. You no longer view everything as a burden to endure, but as an opportunity to experience, learn, and appreciate. This attitude not only changes how you feel about the day, but also influences how others respond to you. Genuine positivity has a powerful ripple effect. Gratitude is not a seasoning sprinkled on life, but the main recipe for turning even an ordinary day into a day worth living. When it becomes your default lens, you realize that happiness is not about having more, but about recognizing that you already have enough to feel rich right now. Ending the day better than you started is a commitment to progress, not to perfection. The manifesto, "I will end the day better than I started," is a reminder that each day is a circle of learning and adjustment. No matter whether the beginning is smooth or off track, what matters is that you leave that day as a more refined, wiser, and steadier version of yourself. Most people judge a day by comparing it to their morning expectations. If they accomplish many tasks, they consider it a good day. If they encounter obstacles, they label it a bad one. This approach overlooks an important factor. The true value of a day does not lie in how smoothly it unfolds, but in what you have learned, what you have strengthened, and how prepared you are for the next day. Those who understand this principle see every experience in the day as raw material for growth. An argument can be a lesson in emotional control. A work failure can be data to optimize strategy. Even successes are opportunities to reinforce what was done right, instead of simply enjoying them and letting them pass. The goal is not to end with the most victories, but to end with the most insights to make tomorrow more effective. Practicing this manifesto begins with actively reviewing your day. Before going to bed, spend a few minutes asking yourself, in what way did I improve today? What do I need to adjust? If I could start this morning over, what would I do differently? These 3 questions are not meant to stir regret, but to close the learning loop. They help turn each day into a continuous refinement exercise, instead of a string of aimless events. A useful tool is the 1% improvement principle. If each day you improve just 1% compared to the day before, after 1 year, the level of progress will be far beyond what you imagined. 1% sounds small, but it is precisely its smallness that makes it achievable and sustainable. Improving by 1% could be as simple as handling a situation more calmly, organizing your work more neatly, or spending a few more minutes learning. The core of this manifesto is consistency. One excellent day followed by 5 stagnant ones will not create lasting momentum, but if every day you end better than you started, even in just one small aspect, you will build steady growth. It is this momentum that produces big, sustainable and reliable changes. Applying this principle also frees you from the pressure of being perfect immediately. You no longer punish yourself for mistakes, because mistakes are simply raw material for adjustment. Each small failure becomes a step in the path to refinement rather than a reason to quit. This is the mindset of the persistent. They are not judged by the results of a single day, but by the direction of their entire journey. Furthermore, ending the day better than you started is a reminder to consciously create a positive highlight before closing it. If a day has been turbulent, choose to take one small action that makes you feel good. Finish an unfinished task, read a few pages of a book, or send a word of thanks. This act helps your mind store the image of that day as a worthwhile one, rather than just a string of fatigue. When this manifesto becomes a habit, you will see that a new day is no longer a completely random beginning, but a logical continuation of the previous one. Each morning, you carry forward what you have learned, what you have trained, and use it to step higher. Such days linked together will form a continuous progress curve, turning you into a stronger, deeper version of yourself over time. Ending the day better than you started is not only a commitment to yourself, but also a guarantee for the future. Because when you are constantly improving, the future is no longer something to fear, it becomes something you actively create, one day at a time. A solid life blueprint is not a collection of inspiring promises framed on a wall, but a living system of principles you can lean on every single day, regardless of how you feel or what circumstances you face. The 10 declarations before this are not meant to stand alone. They are interwoven, reinforcing one another to form the backbone of your mindset, actions, and resilience. From the moment you wake up, declarations 1 and 2 set your foundation. You start proactively and feed your mind with the right input. This primes you to take every action from a grounded, intentional state. Declarations 3 and 4 then anchor you in reality, facing it without avoidance and prioritizing consistency over fleeting bursts of motivation. Together, they give you both a clear direction and the stability to stay the course, no matter how the external world shifts. Declarations 5 and 6 expand this frame by forging persistence and reframing challenges as opportunities. Obstacles become training grounds instead of roadblocks. This is the mindset of those who know true value comes not from ease, but from turning pressure into inner strength. Declarations 7 and 8 sharpen your focus on your own journey while choosing discipline over motivation. Without comparing yourself to others, you avoid the traps of self-doubt and complacency. Discipline keeps you moving forward when emotions waver, ensuring your progress remains uninterrupted. Finally, declarations 9 and 10 elevate the blueprint, practicing gratitude so you don't fall into endless dissatisfaction, and committing to end each day stronger than you began. Gratitude keeps you anchored in the value of even the smallest things, while your end-of-day improvement locks in sustainable progress, shielding you from the emotional swing between good days and bad days. When combined, these 10 declarations create a complete cycle. Mornings begin with clarity, the day is a steady march through challenges, and evenings are for reflection and reinforcement. Each day builds on the last, making you stronger as you go. The strength of this blueprint lies in its flexibility. You don't need to apply every declaration perfectly at once. Some days you'll focus on discipline, other days on embracing challenges. but the system as a whole still holds. With this framework, you no longer make constant reactive decisions. Instead, you act from principles that have been trained into instinct. When surprises arise, you respond with steadiness, not guesswork. This is how resilient, successful people operate, through ingrained principles, not fleeting impulses. Living by these 10 declarations is giving yourself both a map and a compass. Adaptable enough to meet the unknown, yet structured enough to keep you true to your path. Over time, they stop being just declarations. They become who you are. Every morning is the starting point of a chain reaction. The way you begin does more than influence your mood or productivity for the day. It subtly shapes your thinking, habits, and choices. A day that starts with clarity, proactivity, and purpose naturally leads to sharper decisions, calmer responses, and wiser energy allocation. In contrast, a morning consumed by haste, distraction, and randomness sets the rest of the day adrift, forcing you into constant firefighting instead of intentional building. When each day is shaped by a high-quality morning, you'll notice something shift. You become more consistent, more steadfast, and less swayed by circumstances. Day after day, small, repeated actions weave the nervous system of success, not loud or dramatic, but steady as stone. This becomes the foundation of a solid life, where you no longer chase bursts of motivation because you've built an operating system that generates it naturally every single day. A life built from complete days becomes an ordered whole. Every experience, every challenge, every small win finds its rightful place in your value system. You stop fearing the passage of time because each day accumulates like a gold brick in the wall you're building. You no longer obsess over creating earth-shattering breakthroughs because you understand that real value lies in steady, certain progress. One day, looking back, you'll realize your entire life was shaped by small morning choices. From the way you woke, breathed, thought, to the first actions you took. These moments quietly carved your character. That's when you reach a new level of awareness. Life is not a random collection of events, but a work of art you write each day, and every first page is your morning. And finally, your legacy, the part of you that endures after you're gone, is shaped the same way. No one will remember how many cups of coffee you drank or how many emails you answered in the morning, but they will feel who you were through the discipline, consistency, and clarity you carried. Every morning you built for yourself was another stone placed in the foundation of that legacy. You may not be able to control the entire world, but you always have the power to control how you start your day. Do it long enough, and you'll control how you build your life. And when your life is shaped by clarity, discipline, and gratitude, your legacy will naturally radiate, not by show, but with a quiet force strong enough to inspire across generations. Every morning shapes the day. The day shapes the life, and the life shapes the legacy. The key has always been in your hands. Starting tomorrow, or better yet, starting tomorrow morning,